Hey, welcome back to Drowning in Yarn. I'm Caleb. As part of my Level Up in 2021 knit along, I just knit the Vold Hat by Jean-Philippe Cliche. I picked this hat to learn Intarsia, and it has this really cool, bold graphic design, but I needed 4 colors of yarn to knit this hat, and I didn't have anything in my stash that would work. So as I started to think about what yarn I wanted to use, my mind immediately went to Holst Garn. I previously used Holst Garn's Coast and Super Soft yarns, and so I wanted to check out what else they had to offer, and I settled on Tides, which is a 70% wool, 30% silk, light fingering weight yarn, and I really liked it. So if you want to see more of my finished object, the Vold Hat, and my review of Tides, then stick around. While you're watching this video, don't forget to hit that like button down below if you're enjoying it and getting some value out of it. And if you've used Holst Garn's Tides before and you have some experiences that you want to share, be sure to leave a comment down below. So I've really enjoyed Holst Garn since I discovered them last year. I really like that their yarns are mostly all natural fibers and they're all really affordable, and Tides is no exception. The only problem that I had was that there were 40 colors to choose from, which made it really hard to narrow it down to just the 4 that I needed for my project. I ended up going with the colors Mole, Mares, Frost, and Pecan, and I really liked them. Now, the 30% silk content in the yarn shows up as these little flecks that give the yarn a tweedy or heathered appearance. I think that it gives them just that little bit of something extra and keeps them from just being super flat colors. Just keep in mind that the tweedy appearance really shows up in some of the colors and not quite as much in others. Just be sure that if that's what you're going for, you pick colors that are gonna really show that off. I mentioned that Holst Garn kind of came to mind at first because it is affordable. In this case, I needed 4 different colors of yarn since I didn't have anything in my stash that would work. So Holst Garn was the perfect choice. I was able to buy all 4 colors without really spending too much money. I spent $27.40 on the 4 balls of yarn. That's without shipping. Tides comes in 50-gram balls of yarn that are 314 yards. It is a really light fingering, but you can hold it double to achieve a DK weight gauge, which is what I was going for. You can get Tides from a yarn store here in the US called The Yarnery for $6.85 a ball, which works out to about 2 cents a yard, which is a great deal. You can also order Tides straight from Holst Garn for around $4.22 a ball or $34 for a 500-gram cone, which comes out to about 1 penny a yard. It's an awesome deal, but you do have to keep in mind that if you do that, you're gonna have to deal with shipping straight from Denmark, so it's gonna cost a lot more and take a lot longer. I chose to order from the Yarnery here in the US. I just really like to support US local yarn stores since I do live here in the US. I've ordered from the Yarnery before and gotten amazing service. I've called them and they're just so nice and helpful when I have questions. I really recommend ordering it from here in the States to support a local yarn store, but I just want to make sure you had all the information so you could make the choice that was best for you economically. So as I mentioned, it is a light fingering, but the ball band actually gives you gauge information for both holding it single strand for a fingering weight pattern or holding it double for a DK or light worsted pattern. So the suggested gauge for Tides is 25 stitches to 4 inches for a single strand of yarn, and that's using a US 2.5 to 4 needle, and it suggests about 16 stitches to 4 inches with a US 6 or 7 if you're holding it double. The pattern for the DK weight Vold actually called for a US 4 needle for a DK weight yarn, but I went ahead and used that US 4 with 2 strands of Holst Garn, despite the fact that a US 4 is suggested for a single strand, and I really enjoyed the fabric that I ended up with. I've said it a couple times, but it bears repeating. Tides, like almost all of Holst Garn's yarns, is a light fingering weight, and that's a very accurate description. When you look at it straight out of the ball, it looks almost like a lace weight yarn. However, it has a little bit of spinning oil left on the yarn, and the fibers are very compressed. When you block the yarn, the oil washes out, and it really does bloom. It's super satisfying to see, and it makes for a really nice yarn. It is true that it's not like the most luxurious knitting experience. It's not particularly soft or springy, and you will feel a little bit like you lotioned your hands while you're working with it because of that tiny bit of spinning oil. I didn't even really think too much about the oil because it is such such a little amount of oil. It's not oily or greasy, and the yarn isn't like scratchy or rough. It still has a nice elasticity because it is mostly wool. It's just, you should bear in mind its true nature is going to come out in the blocking. So don't be discouraged while you're knitting with it, and don't expect a super luxurious knitting experience if you do choose to work with it. I will say that the tides in a 1x1 fabric pre-blocking was pretty dense and stiff at this gauge. And when I say it was stiff and dense, like I could stand it up on its own to film it. There's nothing underneath this hat holding it up. But again, I knew that was going to come out in the blocking. I blocked it using a little bit of dish soap in cold water. I was not gentle on this fabric. It's not a super wash wool, but the ball band does say that you can wash it on a wool wash cycle in the washing machine. So I felt pretty confident in really like rubbing it around and swishing it around in the water to make sure that I got all of that spinning oil out. I let it soak for about 20 minutes, pulled it out of the water, drained it, and then rinsed it repeatedly to make sure that I got all of the dish soap and all of that spinning oil out. After that, I just laid it out until it was done air drying, and it completely transformed. All of that like denseness and all of that stiffness was just completely gone. The fabric took on this really nice woolly quality, and there's just this slight halo to the stitches, which just really gained a little bit of fullness. I wouldn't say that you can even necessarily see this complete transformation in the fabric, but you can definitely feel it. The resulting fabric feels so much nicer than you would think it would, given the price point of the yarn. It's got a nice woolly appearance, and it just feels so soft to the touch. I couldn't be happier with the feel and appearance of the fabric, especially given how much I paid, or I should say how little I paid. I'm honestly super happy with how my project turned out. I was able to make a really beautiful hat, spend not a lot of money, and I ended up with a woolly yet soft, a light and airy project with a fabric that I think most people could wear next to skin without any problems. And I was able to choose from a ton of different colors. I think you just have to bear in mind that if you do choose to go with this yarn, like you're gonna have to swatch, and you may have to swatch again. It is a very thin fingering weight yarn. It will transform, but it is still on the thinner side. And you're gonna wanna know how it's gonna work out in your project. So understanding gauge and all of that is gonna be important. I love this Holst Garn tide so much, and I would be very confident in recommending this yarn to you. I would also really recommend the Vold Hat pattern. If you're looking for a hat for the Level Up in 2021 knit along, which runs until March 20th, 2021, or if you're just looking for a really fun hat to learn intarsia or practice intarsia or whatever, the Vold was super well written, easy to follow, and the finished hat is so graphic and bold and fun. It's just an awesome pattern that lets your colors shine and looks great. If you are participating in the Level Up in 2021 knit along, leave a comment down below and let me know what you're working on and what you're learning. And if you've used tides before, let us know your experience down below. And definitely hit that like button down below if you haven't already and you're enjoying this video, and hit the little subscribe button and the bell next to it to get notifications when I post new content. Until next time, I hope you enjoy your knitting, and I will see you later.